On May the 2nd, 2025 at 3:30, it was a Friday afternoon, I walked out of my office, left all my staff, and that was the final day of work for me.
I don't have to give my 100% to my business. I have to keep some part to my family and my own self as well, because if I don't, I will end up in a situation where I will be miserable in 10 years, 20 years or 30 years from now.
I got lucky at the right time by meeting good people who I knew would look after my business. Now, not everybody's going to have that luck. They might have to plan to sell their business to somebody they don't want to sell to because the money becomes more important than the business. You can train people to be good craftsmen, but you can't train them to be nice people. So have nice people in your business and do a good job.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Roofing Millionaires Podcast, the only roofing podcast where we don't promote anyone and we don't sell you anything. In this episode, we are sitting down with Graeme Millar, who has been the former chairman of NFRC and IFD, and he has been leading his own roofing company, Bain and Irvine Roofing in Scotland. Graeme took retirement from his roofing career, so I invited him to talk about what life looks like after you retire from your roofing journey and how you need to do the emotional planning and the financial planning related to your retirement journey. Do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want us to bring more roofing experts like this on the show who can help you plan a better future for your own self and for your organization. Let's dive in. What are the fears do you feel are associated with retirement in a man, if there are any fears associated to it in the first place?
Well, fear is quite a strong word, but it's relevant because when you have worked for basically 50 years in the industry, and the roofing industry is tough. It's a tough industry. It's an enjoyable industry and very creative in the things that we do and very rewarding from that aspect. It's still quite a tough level of life. The work is hard, particularly in the early years when I was working on the tools, and less tough from a practical perspective later on when you're managing and owning the company. But that brings with it various other elements of toughness, which is employing people, and that has its difficulties also. As far as fears are concerned, I was quite fortunate, well, very fortunate in that the company that came in to purchase my company, Durable Slate Company in the United States in Columbus, Ohio, you'll know Gary Howes and John Chan and Michael Chan well, the owners of that company, the principal owners of that company. I was fortunate in that selling my company, Bain and Irvine, to them lessened the fear of retirement in a way, because they offered to keep me on for 2 years as part of the agreement. After 6 months, I decided that it probably wasn't for me to be working in that environment, that there was a lot of changes in the business under the Durable ownership, and we had a brand new management team that came in from Edinburgh, locally from Edinburgh, when we merged with Newtown Roofing, with Jamie Anderson and Brian McIntyre coming in. So there was a lot of changes all at once, and that I wasn't, I was the committee of one for many, many years. I was owning the business, dealing with all aspects of the business. So suddenly I'm in a situation where I've got new people that I've got to mentor, and it just really wasn't for me, I have to say. So I decided after 6 months, I spoke to Gary and John and decided that I would leave. So that presented me with, what do I do? What do I do with my time? That November, when Durable purchased the company, I had 6 months from then through to the May of 2025, so not even a year now. And during that period of time, I was reflecting on what I was going to do when I retired. But I had a few other things that I was doing. I was president of the IFD at that time and just retiring from that. I was retiring from being captain at the golf club. So there was lots of things that I was doing, which were all coming to an end at one time. So you mentioned the word fear. I suppose there was an element of fear about what I was going to do come my retirement, full retirement in the May of that year. And I suppose how I coped with that was looking to do other things.
was there any hesitation or any fear of being irrelevant as well? Because you mentioned that they brought up a new management team, and this is not like specifically for you. I am young. I may be cannot understand what it actually feels when you are going to be irrelevant or when you think of it like that. So, do you feel that irrelevance is also a factor in like the fears of retirement? And if it is, how do you handle that now?
You hit the nail, to use a roofing parlance, you hit the nail on the head there, really, Mohammed, because suddenly you become irrelevant. On May the 2nd, 2025 at 3:30, it was a Friday afternoon, I walked out of my office, left all my staff, and that was the final day of work for me. So with Bain and Irvin, anyway, with my company that I had built up from nothing from 1987 on, we only had 3 staff in 1987, and I built it up to the company it became. So yes, that was that was difficult, but the relevance of a human being is the toughest thing, because suddenly you're dealing with people every day, you're meeting people every day, and then suddenly within a day or so, you are irrelevant because you're not involved in that company anymore. So the strength you require to get over that irrelevance has been something I've struggled with. I have to say I'm a bit emotional about that, because I suddenly become someone who needed conversation but wasn't getting it. And I'm very much a people person. I've always considered myself a people person. I was talking to people, clients, staff, surveyors, architects. I was speaking to people all the time, and the new owners, of course, and the new management team. And then suddenly I was at home talking to Norma, and that was my only source. The good thing about what I do as a hobby, which is play golf, was that I was coming into the summer months. So I had the golf club to go to and speak to people, and that was great. So the biggest fear, again, using that word, was this winter, how I was going to fill my time this winter. So that was the relevance of hadn't really hit me until the winter months, when, you're very lonely at that point.
And that's quite interesting because, I meet roofing company owners and they say that I'm not going to retire. I'm never going to be irrelevant because I learn all the time. And I am young, like I am building my business. I meet at the same time people who are in their 20s and in their 30s. They are like in the young bracket. What I want to ask you is that what I can feel now, you should not give all of your identity to your business in the first place. You should have some place for your personal self, and for you should keep a part of yourself exclusive to your own individuality as well. So when you don't have all these things, you can at least spend time with yourself. And that brings me to a point, Graham. Last time when we sat down, you mentioned that you were not quite giving time to your family and they understood that part. But now, when you don't have all that work around you, and maybe like what I can sense is that if I am in your shoes and if I am listening to your advice, what I would do is that I would think of it like this, that I don't have to give my 100% to my business. I have to keep some part to my family and my own self as well, because if I don't, I will end up in a situation where I will be miserable in 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years from now, where I won't have my team and my co-workers around me, but the people I was supposed to be having, now they are busy in their own lives as well. So what would I do?
Well, that's another great point, Mohammed, because when you're 60, I'm nearly 68, I'll be 68 in a few weeks. When you're 68, that means that your children, Stephanie is 35 and Greg is 34. They have their own partners. There's no children involved, so there's no grandchildren to look after. But they lead their own lives. I don't see my children very often because they're busy in their own working lives, albeit that I did see Stephanie at the weekend and we watched a rugby match together. Yeah, there are times when we can get together, but they're nothing like when they're children, when you're busy at work, but you're seeing your kids at night, you're seeing them all the time at weekends. So whilst there is an element of sometimes I'm glad not to see them, because the problem with children that are in their mid-30s is that the problems that they bring to you are bigger problems, usually financial problems, which you need to resolve. So sometimes I'm quite glad not to see them. That's might sound a bit strange, but they do. When they're children, they bring you with a cut arm or a problem at school or bullying or something like that, and which you can easily resolve. But when they're older, it's buy this car, Dad, or can I buy this house? You know, so the problems are certainly a lot bigger, maybe less frequent, but bigger. You know, filling my time is something that I'm going to have to look at doing. And on the back of that, I do a little bit of consultancy work. I was looking at a roof yesterday, so that's filling in a little bit of my time. But that will only be perhaps one project per week, but that will take me maybe a morning to look at the project and an afternoon to write a report on it. So that'll be one day in the week when I can concentrate on roofing still, which is my passion, as you know. So that's good. And I've recently been asked to become a trustee of a charity, a local charity in Peebles, which is where we live, 20 miles south of Edinburgh. It's only got 8,000 people, but the charity is relative to looking after older buildings, heritage buildings, and purchasing them as a charity and then converting them or making sure that they continually exist in a way where they're manageable. In other words, making sure that they're waterproof, for example. So we do that, and I'm really quite excited about getting involved in the local charity. But again, it's not going to take up much of my time. And the other great honour that I've recently had was that when I was in St Andrews at the Scottish region of the NFRC dance the other day, I was awarded the Pin of Honour, which is for a lifetime achievement in the roofing industry and what I've done for the NFRC over the years, and that was particularly pleasing to receive that. And just before I received that award, I was asked if I would chair the National Federation of Roofing Contractors in the UK charity arm, which is looking after the educational part of the roofing industry, which means that we can give money to young people who are maybe struggling to stay in the industry, which is a really good charity as far as I can see so far, although it's early days for me. And also looking after hardships, people in the industry that have fallen on hard times. So it's a hardship and educational charity, which I'll chair as a trustee. We have 4 other board members, and I've recently taken over from Peter Rogerson, OBE, who was the previous chair, and like me, a former president of the National Federation of Roofing Contractors. So these are my consultancy business, 2 charities. These are things that I'll give my time to, which will encourage me to, get out of bed in the morning, which is really important. Get up about 6:30 in the morning. I'm now getting up about 7:30. So for all those potential retirees that are listening to this podcast, you will get up a bit later in the morning to start your day. So I suppose this podcast is really about people who might be at my time of life who are considering giving up their business or selling their business, and what they should really be looking to do when they do retire. Because roofing is a really hard industry, and it gives you bad knees and bad shoulders and bad elbows and things that you cannot continue to work in past the age of probably 65, where manually it's difficult to continue. So that's a little bit more about retirement and what you can do in your time.
Yes. And when we talk about planning about retirement, I think so that the fundamentals are the same. Like every business is unique. Every business is different. The owner has made it the way that they want it to be, so they can serve their customers in the best way. But fundamentally, every business is quite same, and every individual is quite same as well. Like you and I may eat a different kind of food, but we eat food 2 or 3 times a day, so these things remains the same. Speaking of that, what do you feel are the common variables that someone should take control of when they are planning to retire?
Well, I think it's important that you have hobbies. I would certainly think that's as far as variables are concerned, which are be totally different. Golf for me, for example, I've been playing golf all my life, so it's a hobby I've always had. So is that a variable? Yes, because you perhaps get out in the fresh air in the summer months in Scotland, and it's beautiful in the little town that we live in. So it's a nice and it's good exercise. So exercise is important the older you get, for sure. Even if it's just a walk, a mile or 2 mile walk in the morning, and that's what the golf course gives you. It gives you exercise. It gives you. You have to look after your mental health as well. I think that's something that I maybe struggled with at the outset when I felt you used the word irrelevant. You do become mentally irrelevant to yourself. Nobody's speaking to you anymore. So look after your mental health, and looking after your physical health helps you to look after your mental health. I've always been a believer, if you're fit or relatively fit, your mental health will look after itself in most cases, not all cases, of course. So plan for retirement as best you can. And the other thing, and then we'll probably go on to this, is you have to be able to afford financially to retire. You have to have all your pensions in place. I suppose we can talk about that soon.
Yes. And before we talk about finances, Graham, let's just say that I am a business owner. I own a roofing company and I am a chaotic business owner. Like, I want to be at every project and I love chaos in my company. I love dealing with problems every single day. And I did not realize, but all of a sudden now I am not 35, I am 55 now, and now I don't have that mental energy and the mental capability to handle all the chaos at the same time. Now I have to retire as well. But if I leave my company, I will leave my company to the chaos. My people will they won't have a job, and I also at the same time think about them as well. So now this becomes a hurdle for me. I can't leave my company because of the people, and if I leave the company, my company will collapse. In that situation, what would you advise to me as a business owner that this is I should do?
Well, I've been through both aspects of that, because I think it was about 2006, I received an offer for my business at that time. So basically 20 years ago. So I was in my late 40s. I think you have to be ready to retire. I think you have to know yourself when the time is right. And in my late 40s, the time wasn't right. And the company that were interested in purchasing our company at the time, I mean, our company was doing really well at that time. It was worth probably on the market at around 1.5 to 2 million pounds, the company at that time. So it was worth selling, but I wasn't ready. And my biggest concern, and you pointed it out, was my staff. I had about 25 staff at that time. What was going to happen to them if I sold the company and walked out the door? Normally, companies would ask you to consult with them. New companies would ask you to consult with them for a period of 2 years or 3 years or 6 months, whatever it may be. And that is the opportunity to ensure that your staff remain safe in the workplace, not safe from falling, but safe in a job. Make sure that they had a job, because not only are you looking at a situation where you have staff members, 25 staff members, you might have 25 families that are reliant on that man or woman working in our business. So you're not just affecting the 25 people, you're maybe affecting another 100 people on top of that. So I've always been keen to protect my staff. So if we fast forward to 2025, 23 really, 2023, when the opportunity came for Durable to come in and become involved. I felt safer with that sale of the company. The company was worth nothing like it used to be, but the finance was okay. But the protection of the staff, I knew that John and Gary would look after our staff and would continue to run the business very much like the way I used to run it, and keep their employees at the forefront of how they ran the business. So from the early time, what would my advice be to somebody who's chaotic in their business life? If you're chaotic in your business life, you've got to keep going, because you're still chaotic. You're always going to be chaotic until the time you know when it is time to leave. You will know when you can't mentally or physically do what you used to do. And that usually happens in your early 60s. And it happened to me in my early 60s. And from my early 60s to when I sold the company to Durable, my abilities to carry out the job that I was doing had started to decline. And I knew that was happening. Thankfully, I had really good people helping me in the business at that time, a great surveyor and a good contracts manager, Alan and Ryan, and they were effectively running the business for me, and I was starting to slowly decline out of the business. So it doesn't happen overnight. That chaos to retirement doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually. But my advice to anybody is see the signs, understand when you're not able to do things that you used to be able to do very easily. You become mature, but you become more cantankerous as you become older. You become slightly more disagreeable in your life. It's just a natural thing. So dealing with staff becomes a little bit more difficult. Don't listen to people that say the words like, "Oh, it was better in my day." It's not. It wasn't. It wasn't better in these days. The roofing industry is improving all the time. I watch your podcast and I listen to enthusiastic people coming on to your podcast, and it's a great pleasure of mine to see these people who are so enthusiastic. From one day, these enthusiastic people will get to a stage where they're less enthusiastic, and that is the time when they have to furl up the flag and say, "I need to think about slowing down."
That is a great point that you gave me. The point that you just raised, I think so that it requires some kind of acceptance as well as an individual, that now you can't do the things that you were used to do 20 years back. And that requires acceptance and like getting rid of your ego as well, maybe.
Ego is ego. Some people have it and some people acquire it. Some people just have it naturally. Did I have an ego? Yeah, I suppose. But everything that I've been asked to do, and I've never pushed to do anything out with my business. I didn't ever go to the NFRC and say, "I want to be the president of this organization." That just came over time. And then when I was asked to become junior vice president, I put my hand up and said yes. And then all the way through. And then I didn't ask to go on the board of the IFT, the International Federation. The NFRC put me forward for that role. And they asked me and I said yes. I've always been someone who said yes to any request for my time. Not everybody's like that. Does that mean I have an ego? I don't know. I was always very competitive. So is that an ego thing? No, it's just me being competitive. I've always been competitive. When I was heavily involved in the National Federation of Roofing Contractors in the UK, I was always supportive of other companies that were doing the same thing. I was never jealous of any other company. I was always keen to see them progress and even mentor them if that could be done. So ego, perhaps it's for other people to determine whether I had an ego or not. I was certainly very competitive and I was tough at times, but you have to be tough at times with employees. And was that an ego? They were never scared of me. They always talked to me and I always talked to them about the problems they had. So that's another thing that I would advise. As you get into your later years, speak to your staff, help them, mentor them, and show and give you off your experience that you've had in life. Because not only can you help them in being a better tradesman or woman, you can make them a better person as well, hopefully.
Okay. How did you financially plan your retirement? And you can speak about the numbers or not, that's up to you. But how did you plan it financially?
Well, I was very fortunate. When I took over Bain and Irvine Limited, well, it was a partnership in these days, which is slightly different. You have more financial responsibility to the government if you're a partnership as opposed to a limited company. You can lose your house, in other words, if you go out of business. So we made that Bain and Irvine a limited company about 20 years after that. So I was very fortunate. When I was asked by the family to go down and run Bain and Irvine, there was two tradesmen, well, one tradesman and an apprentice, Jim Bennett and Gary Nash. And there was a lady in the office called Frances Jack, whose maiden name was Irvine, Frances Irvine, and she was the daughter of George Irvine, the original proprietor of Bain and Irvine. One of the first things that Frances and I hit it off really well. She began in the office as a 15-year-old in 1946 under her father and retired in 1996 under me as the manager and owner of the company at that time. So 50 years she spent in that business. Tremendous servant to her father's business. And she said, right, Graeme, what have you done for pensions? Because in this country, you get what we call an old age pension. When you retire, when you reach the age of 66, as it is now, the government pay you an amount every week. Now, that amount is, I think, to give you a figure, it's about £850 a month, something like that. Now, to gain that, you have to pay into that. We have a free national health service, so you pay from your wages, you pay about 25% to national insurance, which takes care of your health service, and a further percentage towards your pension, which you receive when you're 66. But that in itself is not a lot of money if you're still paying a mortgage. So Frances said, right, Graeme, we need to set you up with a private pension. So my wage in these days was not very much. We just started. In fact, there were some weeks when I didn't even take a wage because we were just starting out really in the business. Although the business had been established in 1946, it was new to me and it was a very small staff. So I had to go back on the tools and work quite hard to build that business up. A part of my wage went into a private pension, and now that private pension paid out a number of years ago, and it was a reasonable sum, say, I think £1,000. And now, if it hadn't been for Frances telling me at that time of life, when I was 28 or whatever it was, to do that £85,000 would never have materialised. So that was important. So that was part, and then over time, I invested more money into, as I was getting busier and financially more stable, I invested more money into private pensions. And I've now realised all of that private pension amount. I've also, obviously, we sold the business to Durable Slate Company, and the entrepreneur's tax on selling a business at the time when we sold was 10%. So 10% of that goes to the government, and the rest of it comes to Norma and I. So that's invested in further pensions. And so financially, I'm a lot better off than most. I'm not super wealthy. I don't have a Ferrari sitting out there. I have to put up with an old Mercedes. But we are comfortable. And when we see what's going on in the world right now, and we feel very lucky that we are comfortable, because there's a cost of living crisis in the United Kingdom, like there is, I think, throughout the world at the moment. So yes, planning is important. If I was 28 right now and I tell my kids, pile your money into private pensions as much as you can, because your pension will always increase. And we've also got a nice house here, which is worth X amount of money, which we could sell. It's a big house, so it's got 5 bedrooms, so we don't need 5 bedrooms, so we can sell that and move to a smaller house. And again, we can invest the money in our children, what's left, invest it in our children so that our children are comfortable. So all of that planning really started with Francis telling me all these years ago to invest in pension planning for the future. So that's how I did it, and that's how I would advise any. How old are you, Mohammed? You're still in your 20s, aren't you?
Yes, I'm 26.
Yeah, you had a birthday recently. I noticed that you were 26. I thought you might be older than that, given your wealth of experience and knowledge already. So I would advise anyone of your age to invest in shares or private pensions or anything that you don't miss the money every week. It'll really come in handy when you're my age and you have to live off these pension amounts. So that's my advice.
Yes, and speaking of advice, Graham, everyone has a different lifestyle and everyone has different lifestyle choices. Like some people want that Ferrari, some people want that luxurious lifestyle, some people like closer to be who they are actually on an emotional or on a spiritual level. But are there any general rules or financial planning for retirement that you can list down that these are the 4 things or 5 things or 3 things that you have to keep in mind if you are planning for retirement, and these remain the same no matter if you want a luxurious lifestyle or if you just want to live in your means?
Well, certainly, if you want to plan it and for old age, a lot of people are retiring earlier now, Mohammed. So I hear I've got friends in the United States that have sold their business and they're still in their mid-50s, and I wonder, and the finance that they've received for their businesses is significant, so enough to see them through the rest of their lives without any issues. You make a point about what you need. I don't really require much. We live a pretty simple life, Norma and I. We play our golf. We have our golf club fees. We have to heat our house in the winter. Don't really have a lot of outgoings anymore because we've planned for this period of time. We have ensured that we have enough money to see us through to our demise, whenever that will be. So yeah, we're okay, but we do live a simple life. We don't overspend. We go out for dinner once or twice a month and spend, £100 on dinner or whatever, 150. Because we go out with friends occasionally for a drink or a meal. We don't overspend, but we've always been like that because when we were busy and working hard, you were tired, so you didn't spend much because you were you were so busy during the day that you come home and you just relax. So we've never, whilst we had the money when we were busy, we didn't have a way of spending it really. And we've got a nice house and we've got a couple of nice cars in the drive, but overall we've not overspent. So, but there are individuals who just cannot help themselves. And there are individuals that put their own business under pressure financially due to their excesses of living. And I see a lot of businesses that fail because the management, the ownership of the business overspend on personal things. So if there are a list of things that I would suggest that you do, pensions, savings, just make sure you save some money for the future. It's called saving for a rainy day in this country, and there's a lot of rainy days in Scotland. Yeah, keep something back. Don't overspend. You can have a perfectly good lifestyle and without spending exorbitant amount of money on Ferraris and lavish holidays and the things. There's another thing which I should mention is holidays.
Okay.
Norm and I love traveling, and during my time with the IFD, the International Federation, we did a lot of traveling at that time. So traveling is a great thing because It learns you, it gives you experiences. And if you can afford to fit in a couple of holidays or vacations every year, that's also wonderful. See countries that you've never seen before. That's a good learning thing. And if you have the money set aside for that, that would be a good thing to spend your retirement on, traveling and meeting people.
Okay, if you could go back like in time, maybe 10 years or 15 years, do you think that there is something that you would have changed if you were planning your retirement?
I don't think so. I think it's worked out pretty well for us, but we were lucky. I was lucky to know John Chan and Gary House. If I hadn't met John Chan and Gary House, I would suspect that I'd still be working right now in the business for the very reason that I mentioned earlier, just to keep my staff employed. Now, that wouldn't be a good thing because I was ready to retire when I retired. I knew it myself that my enthusiasm had waned. No, would I change any of my planning? No, I got lucky. I got lucky at the right time by meeting good people who I knew would look after my business. Now, not everybody's going to have that luck. They might have to plan to sell their business to somebody they don't want to sell to because the money becomes more important than the business, and that's a sad state of affairs, in my opinion. But yeah, I was fortunate, and I'll be forever grateful to the guys for coming in, and grateful to the new management team of Brian and Jamie, particularly Jamie, who's the managing director now. That's no slight on Brian, but Jamie's very, very driven and enthusiastic, and he's 32. So he's at the right age. So it's been a pleasure to meet all of these guys, and it's secured the future of the business, which is really emotionally, that's always been my priority. And the guys that I speak to the guys, occasionally if I see a van parked at a job somewhere, I'll go and speak to the guys and they say how much they're loving it. They always say they're missing me terribly. That's not the case. So yeah, that's the future secure. So would I change anything? No, I've been lucky, so I wouldn't change anything.
You said that you were too focused on your business, on creating everything and managing everything when you were working. You could not find time to invest into relationships or friendships that much. And I feel that there are two kind of personalities here. Number one is like people who like being around friends, and they like, even if they are working, they make time for these things. I am not that person as well. I have problems with friendships too. Like when I am focused on work, I'm focused on work, and I have weeks where I don't see my friends. But you right now are at a stage where, like, maybe you want to make a phone call to someone and they already have people in their lives they spent 20 or 30 or 40 years with, and they are more comfortable in spending time with them instead of you. And now at this stage, what I can assume is that someone thinks that if 20 or 2 or 3 or 4 decades back, when I had the energy, I should have invested in my relationships or in my friendships as well. So how do you handle that loneliness if you face that, especially during the dark winters in Scotland?
Well, it's only my first one, Mohammed. So it's only my first winter. We managed to fit in a couple of holidays. So we went to Madeira, which is a Portuguese island in the Atlantic, for a week in September, October time, just at the start of the winter. And we were just back from the Canary Islands, an island called Fuerteventura, and we spent a week there. And we had our weekend up at St Andrews, meeting all the NFRC Scottish region at their annual dance. So, and being awarded the Pin of Honour was a special treat at the event, but also it was nice to connect with all the people that I've known for all these years. So I have two lots of friends from the roofing industry who've been really good to me over the years. And I've got my buddies from the golf club. So I have lots of people, but true friends, not true, they're all true friends, I can call them that, but I've only got 2 or 3 from my childhood who I'm still friendly with, who I can speak to about anything. So it's nice to have that. I think everybody, whilst you might be focused on your business 100%, you have to have some time with these people. Now, I don't see these 3 individuals all that often, But when I do meet them, it's like we've never been apart. Our conversations just continue from the last time, but there might be 6 months in between seeing them, you know? So it's important to have close friends, reliable friends, but it's also great to have a community like the roofing industry, which is very together in Scotland. There's no real jealousy there. There's no real competitiveness. We all stick together and look after each other. And that's relative to the National Federation of Roofing Contractors. As an organisation, I think it's very important. And on another matter, to be recognised for my lifetime's work with them was very important to me the other week. Yeah, that was nice. So friends, yeah, you've got to have friends. You've got to have somebody to turn to. But my best friend is Mrs. Millar, and she's the cornerstone of everything that I do. Wives should always be your best pal, I think. Don't you think? You're not married,
Yes.
of course.
Yes. Maybe next time we sit down, we discuss the importance of having the right partner in your life. But
Yeah.
right now, I have 3 questions for you. And the first one is there any importance of documenting the wisdom that you have as a business owner before retirement? So the next guys that they take over, they don't have any problems.
Well, I speak to Jamie Anderson, the new managing director, arguably once a week. Probably once a week, I should say. I would think he enjoys these conversations. I speak to Gary and John occasionally about the business, but more in a friendly way. I don't want to really get involved in the finances of the business. It's not my place. But Jamie and I do talk a lot about how the business is going, how he's developing as a manager and a part owner, because Brian and Jamie have been given a percentage of the business to give them that, create that enthusiasm that any director, business director needs. Yeah, I'm always there for them at any point. But the office is 5 minutes walk from the house. So I know Jamie's coming in tomorrow afternoon. He phoned me yesterday. He's got a couple of things to talk about. So he's popping in tomorrow afternoon to have a chat with me. Yeah, that keeps me involved, and it ensures a kind of normal transition from me to Jamie. But he's young, he's enthusiastic, so I love that. I just love that. It reminds me of me when I was his age. So yeah, still in contact.
Okay. Last time when we sat down, Graham, we discussed that how the roofing industry is different in the US and in the UK. And you just mentioned that contractors here in Scotland, they like supporting each other. We are like a community. And you listen to my podcast as well. You know better than me that in America, things are like quite aggressive and different. People like competing and they like to have that kind of environment. Speaking of that, earlier in the interview when we started, we mentioned about being irrelevant. So you guys, like someone like you, I look at you and I feel that you have all the wisdom in the world that I need to build a great business. Because even if we have tech now, we have AI, we have machine learning and so many things, CRMs, software, different kind of applications, but the fundamentals, they never change. The foundations of a business, they never change. So right now, what do you feel about this, that people are more oriented towards someone like, if I come in front of a roofing contractor and I throw more technical jargons, I use more technical terms, I use more advanced software language, they will be more inclined towards learning from me instead of learning from you. That is what I feel. I can be wrong here. If that is the case, what do you think about this?
Well, do you know, times move on, Mohammed. I'm always been a supporter of change. And perhaps that's another reason why I decided to bow out of my business, because my principles always in business were just to do a good job. If you did a good job for Mrs. Smith would tell Mrs. Brown, and Mrs. Brown would tell Mr. Jones down the road, and that's how you would build your business. And as my dad used to say, it's better than an advert on the back of a bus. It was an old saying, but it's true. Just do a good job and you will build your business that way. And the other thing was to just hire nice people, because train you can train people to be good craftsmen, but you can't train them to be nice people. So hire nice people, train them after that, and you'll always have nice people. And so have nice people in your business and do a good job. I mean, these are simple simple things, but they were the axis of how we built our business and how many others built their business. Look after your employees, make sure they're okay, make sure they're happy at their work. Simple things. The modern way is, take the United States, for example. I worry about the industry in the United States more so because a lot of companies are selling up to bigger organizations, equity buyout. That kind of takes you away from the traditions of running your company. I can understand why a company owner at, say, their mid-50s sells out to a larger organization. I can understand that. Purely from a financial perspective, I can understand that, but not from a moral perspective. I think they should just look after the staff. I don't know how competitive it is in the United States. I've only got Durable Slate Company to look at how they behave in the marketplace, and they behave excellently. Their marketing, their sales, everything is done to a high standard, and it's another reason that we came together, because we had the same basic influences in our life. I think we're all good people. We just try our best for our company. So that was good. But the training in the United States is improving, which has got to be the cornerstone of any business. When I heard that a few years ago that 2% of the American roofing staff are trained, I was horrified, because in the UK, it will be, I would expect somewhere around 50% of the people that are working in the roofing industry are trained to a decent standard. But I know through the NRCA and McKay Daniels, the chief exec there, things are getting better. There's training programs out there. There's enthusiastic contractors that are lending their time to help with training and giving up of their time, because that's how it happens. Voluntary work to improve the industry is so vital. So the competition, it's a different marketplace. It is certainly more competitive in the United States. It doesn't matter what government's in place in the United States, because they are a very competitive race of people. I think in the UK we're a bit more laid back, particularly in Scotland. We are more laid back, and I'm sure the Durable guys have seen that since they took over the ownership of the company. They like coming over here, so that's always a good sign. We'll be speaking to them in May when they're coming over with the National Slate Association in the States. So there are good people in the industry who volunteer to help. So United States is on the up, and as far as the UK, I think the organisations like the E14 are doing a really good job in training and helping young people into the industry, which is the biggest problem that we face, is getting young apprentices to come into, particularly you talk about AI and IT and all the jobs that are available in the industry. These weren't available when I was a kid. You went into the trade or you went into an office. That was as simple as that. And some were lucky enough to get to university and go into a profession. But that was a very small number when I was a kid. When I was leaving school, very few at our school went to university. Now the trend is that the vast majority of them go to university or college when they leave school and don't go into the trades. So that's a specific problem that we're throughout the world, which we're all trying hard to address. But the difference between the US and the UK are perhaps significant. But companies like Durable are hopefully bringing that gap a bit closer.
Okay. My last question to you is that, let's just say I am a roofing company owner, or you are speaking with a roofing company owner who is planning for retirement in the next 10 years, maybe. What should I change internally, or what kind of mindset shift I should have when I show up to the office tomorrow?
If you're considering retiring in 10 years, what should you be doing now?
Yes, mentally.
Well, one thing you shouldn't be doing is showing your staff that you're going to retire. You have to retain that same enthusiasm that you've always had if you're running a successful business. But you've got to make plans. You've got to hire people that will continue the business. Maybe plan in the next 10 years to have an employee buyout, sell the company to your employees, which is something that does happen in the UK. I don't know if it happens in the United States or Europe. I'm not sure. But company buyouts are something where it protects your staff and it allows them to progress the company in the way they would like it to be progressed. So I would be planning over the next 5 years of your 10-year plan to have something in place where the employees are secure in the future. And that might mean bringing in a new management team like we have at Bain and Irvine. It might mean merging with another company of a similar size to bring all that together. So you have to look for opportunities over the next 5 years, and then the following 5 years would be your time to drift out of the company. So it'd be more of a short to medium term thing, and then a longer term plan just to drift out and see the company grow. Or if it doesn't grow, ask the question why, and perhaps then it's time to review that situation. Certainly, if you're looking to retire as a 55-year-old and you're looking to retire at 65, take steps now at 55 to look towards the next 10 years to ensure that you're protecting your business for the future. Don't just sell it to the highest bidder, because that never works.
Thank you so much for your time, Graeme, and thank you for speaking and sharing all this wisdom about retirement. And I loved talking to you. I'll be praying for your health, and I wish that you live in the best of your health and spirits.
Yeah, well,
in
it's
the
very
coming
kind of
time
you,
in your
Mohammed.
life.
Thank you for asking. I'm getting older, and things start to break down, and you take longer to heal. I've had a bad knee. I've had a couple of broken ribs, and these things take longer to heal as you get older, because obviously the body's starting to break down itself. So keep fit, keep physically fit as you can. So that should be the plan for a 55-year-old running to 65. Keep fit, because if you're relatively physically fit, you'll be mentally attuned as well. And try not get too down. Try not get too depressed in the lonely Scottish winter nights if you're a Scottish roofing contractor. Mohammed, thank you very much for your time. I hope this podcast gives some insight into getting older and retiring and planning for the future. And if there's anybody out there who is of my age or maybe 10 years younger who wants to speak about how they should plan, my door is always open to that.
Thank you so much for your time, Graeme. Have a great day.
Thank you. Goodbye.